Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Person, McElwee, Divine. Darkened years of winter have passed. Summer waits for spring before it lives. Blanket clad and wasted, the winter has been long. A gleam of hope the thoughtless nation gives. In silence we walked through the streets, as one by one our hunger strikers died. Oh, Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, Divine. Their memory is forever in my mind. Pictures of their faces in my eyes. My sorrow and grief will not subside, and my love for them I will not disguise. In silence we walked through the streets, as one by one our hunger strikers died. Oh, Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, Divine. Oh, Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, Divine. Oh, Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, through the street, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, Divine. Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, through the streets, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, strikers divine. Harry Hughes, McCreashan Sands, through the streets, Doherty and Lynch, MacDonald, Harson, McElwee, strikers divine.
We interrupt our regular program schedule to bring you the following special report from ABC News, Washington. Here is Ted Couple.
Bobby Sands is dead. The 27-year-old member of the Irish Republican Army who went on a protest hunger strike 66 days ago has died. The British Press Office in Belfast announced this evening that Sands died at 1:17 Tuesday morning, Belfast time. That would have been 8:17 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States. Sands, who was serving a 14-year prison term on a weapons possession charge, had been demanding special status as a political prisoner. A number of other Irish Republican Army members, also imprisoned by the British, have joined Sands in his protest, and several of them are also well into a hunger strike. To repeat, Bobby Sands, 27 years old, and surrounded by members of his family at Maze Prison in Belfast, died tonight in the 66th day of his hunger strike.
Political prisoners, they're political prisoners because everything about the system that put them in jail is special, is political, was designed by Lord Diplock and the British government. And Lord Diplock said it was an extrajudicial system designed to efficiently dispose of the political opponents of British military rule.
À son 55e jour de grève de la faim, son état est jugé de plus en plus critique par les médecins. La Commission des droits de l'homme du Parlement européen va d'ailleurs...
In Moscow, the Soviet news agency TASS described Bobby Sands as a fighter for civil liberties and the Maze prison as a concentration camp. TASS said Sands had been condemned to death by the government's refusal to meet his demand for political status.
The text of which was conveyed to Lord Carrington during an EEC meeting in Brussels. And it's this form of international pressure that the government has always been more likely to heed.
About 150 yards left. Demonstrators hurried out of the way.
Among anti-British demonstrations in various countries, including Australia and Greece, one of the least expected was in Norway, where a group of IRA sympathisers jeered the Queen as she arrived to start a visit. The protesters chanted Sands' name, and the Queen was nearly hit by an object thrown by one of them.
Supporters of Bobby Sands gathered outside the British Airways office on Bloor Street. Sands is demanding that jailed IRA men like himself be treated as political prisoners rather than criminals. And today's crowd came to support the 27-year-old Irishman who has gone without food for 56 days.
At the European Parliament, now in session in Strasbourg, a debate on the situation in the Maze prison has been fixed for Thursday, but British Conservative MEPs hope to prevent it on the grounds it would only exacerbate a highly charged situation.
پنجاه روز اعتصاب غذا کرد شخصی به نام بابی ساندز که الان به نام اون خیابانی هم در تهران است.
We met Father McGee in an ante-room in the prison hospital about 2:45 this afternoon. We had a 5-minute conversation with him, and he explained to us that he was a personal envoy of the Pope's and that his mission here...
Vatican Radio said the judgment on the action of Bobby Sands and his companions is entrusted to the mercy of God.
More than 1,000 people marched in front of the British consulate. They carried a coffin draped in the Irish flag and chanted anti-British slogans. Demonstrators burned a figure of British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher.
Mrs. Thatcher, she thought she was winning and she was losing. It was the biggest loss. Politically, she was losing.
La reazione della comunità cattolico-repubblicana in tutta l'Irlanda del Nord alla morte del 27enne Robert Sands all'alba di oggi.
Congressman from New York said British policy in Northern Ireland was morally bankrupt. The spurning of humanitarian pleas on Sands' behalf had been arrogant, he said.
Fáilte roimh go Corcaigh, agus fáilte go dtí comóra náisiúnta de chuid Sinn Féin den na Stalcóirí Ocras. Táimid seo in San Cahar ina raibh gá ardmhéara de chuid Sinn Féin 100 bliain ó shin, Tomás McCurtain agus Terence McSweeney. Agus 100 bliain ó shin fuair Bert Boss son Saoirse na hÉireann. Welcome to Cork and welcome to the Sinn Féin National Hunger Strike Commemoration. This year marks the centenary of the death on hunger strike of the Sinn Féin ardmhéara of Cork, Terence McSweeney. In October 1920, he died in Brixton Prison in London, and his two comrades, Joseph Murphy and Michael Fitzgerald, died in Cork Prison. They are 3 of 22 Irish Republican hunger strike martyrs we commemorate today. Terence McSweeney was arrested by Crown forces at Cork City Hall in August 1920 and immediately began a hunger strike to demand his release. He wrote that not all the armies of all the empires of the earth can crush the spirit of one true man. 60 years later in the H blocks of Laoghaire, Bobby Sands wrote, "They have nothing in their entire imperial arsenal to break the spirit of one single Republican prisoner who refuses to be broken." For us, the struggle of McSweeney and Sands is the same, and the most fitting memorial to them all will be the new United Ireland, the Irish Republic for which they died, the United Ireland and Republic we are building today. To them we dedicate this event.
I'm 90 miles from Dublin town. I'm in an H-block cell. To help you understand me plight, this story now I'll tell. I'm on the blanket protest. My efforts must not fail, for I'm joined by men and women in the Kesh and Armagh jail. It all began one morning. I was dragged to Castlereagh, and though it was 3 years ago, it seems like yesterday. For 3 days kicked and beaten, I then was forced to sign confessions that convicted me of crimes that were not mine. Sentenced in the Diplock court, my protest began. I could not wear this prison gear. I was a blanket man. I'll not accept their status. I'll not be criminalized. That's the issue in the blocks for which we give our lives. Over there in London town, oh how they laugh and sneer. If they could only make us wear their loathsome prison gear. Prisoners of war, that's what we are, and that we must remain. The blanket protest cannot end till status we regain. I've been beaten round the romper room because I won't say sir. I've been frog marched down the landing and dragged back by the hair. I've suffered degradation, humility and pain. Still the spirit does not falter, British torture is in vain. I've been held in scalding water while me back with tax scrubs was torn. I've been scratched and caught from head to foot, then thrown out on the floor. I've suffered murder searches, been probed by drunken bears. Oh, I've heard me comrades cry and scream, then utter useless prayers. Now with the news that's coming in, our protest must not fail. For now we're joined by 30 girls in Armagh women's jail. So pay attention, Irish men and Irish women too, and show Free State rulers their silence will not do. Though it's 90 miles to Dublin town, it seems so far away. There's more attention to our plight in the USA. Oh, now you've heard the story of this filthy living hell. Remember 90 miles away, I'm still in an H-block cell. Yes, remember 90 miles away, I'm still in an H-block cell.
Agur Euskal Herritik, niretzat ohore bada antolatutako ekitaldi honetan parte hartzea. Betidanik izan gara konplizeak, betidanik eduki ditu harremanak Irlanda eta Euskal Herriaren artean. 39 urte pasatu dira ja preso errepublikarrak borroka latz bati hasiera eman ziotenetik Britaniar handiko gobernuaren zitalkeriaren aurka. Bobby Sands buru zutela eta Mick Divinek eta beste 10 preso errepublikarrek bizitza eman zuten beste Irlanda baten alde, Irlandaren askatasunaren alde. Egoera latzaiek guk lehenengo personan bizi izan genituen. Oso borroka latza izan zen, baina azken finean presoek daukaten azken eskubideari eutsi eta borroka latz hori aurrera eman zuten preso errepublikarrak, beraren herriaren alde, bakearen alde eta justiziaren alde. Presotaz hitz egiten ari garen honetan gogoratu nahi dut Big Bobby, orain dela gutxi utzi diguna. Berak ere presoen eskubidea eta lehen eskubidea dena martxan jarri zuen eta bere esku hartu zuen. Kartzelatik ihes egitea, beste burkide batzuekin batera. Orain dela gutxi zendu da eta bere gogorapena ere ekarri nahi dut momentu honetan mahai gainera. Presotaz hitz egin da, jakin badakizute oraindik guk preso asko ditugula kartzeletan. Zuek bake prozesuaren ondorioz preso guztiak askatu zenituzten, eta guk borroka horretan jarraitzen dugu. Zentzu horretan, etengabea izan du da zuen elkartasuna eta zuen babesa, eta hori ere eskertu nahi dizuet. Big Bobik asko lagundu zigun zentzu honetan, baina baita ere beste preso errepublikar guztiak eta mugimendu errepublikarra oroar, eta asko eskertu nahi dizuegu hau. Bukatzeko esan nahi dizuet, gaur Kieran Doherty omentzen ari zaretela. Eta hori ere mahai gainera ekarri nahi dut. Eta mahai gainera ekarri nahi dut baita ere Dublinen zaudeten parlamentari guztiak, etengabeko lanean ari zaretenak. Irlandan eta Euskal Herrian ere gauza bera egiten ari gara. Preso errepublikar horien ametsak bete, lanaren bidez, borrokaren bidez, antolakuntzaren bidez. Zen eta azkenean Euskal Herrian eta Irlandan Bobby Sandsek esandakoa gogora ekarri nahi dugu. Gure mendeku bakarra, gure seme alaben irribarrea izango da. Mila esker zuen babesagatik, oroitzapenean preso errepublikar hildakoak, eta beti ere present gure ametsa, gure eguna helduko da.
The diary of Bobby Sands, Sunday the 1st of March 1981, his first day on hunger strike.
I am standing on the threshold of another trembling world. May God have mercy on my soul.
My heart is very sore because I know that I have broken my poor mother's heart and my home is struck with unbearable anxiety.
But I have considered all the arguments and tried every means to avoid what has become the unavoidable.
It has been forced upon me and my comrades by 4.5 years of stark inhumanity.
I am a political prisoner. I am a political prisoner because I am a casualty of a perennial war that is being fought
between the oppressed Irish people and an alien, oppressive, unwanted regime that refuses to withdraw from our land.
I believe and stand by the God-given right of the Irish nation to sovereign independence and the right of any Irish man or woman to assert this right in armed revolution.
And that is why I am incarcerated, naked and tortured.
Foremost in my tortured mind is the thought that there can never be peace in Ireland until the foreign, oppressive British presence is removed.
Leaving all the Irish people as a unit to control their own affairs and determine their own destinies as a sovereign people.
Free in mind and body, separate and distinct, physically, culturally and economically.
I believe I am but another of those wretched Irishmen, born of a risen generation with a deep-rooted and unquenchable desire for freedom.
And I am not choose to attempt the end of barbarity is but or to gain a regional recognition of political prisoner.
But primarily because what is lost here is lost for the Republic and those wretched oppressed who I am deeply proud to know as the risen people.
Hi, this is Mark Guilfoyle from Kentucky. I am president of the Friends of Sinn Féin, and I'm honored to be asked to say a few words to commemorate the Irish hunger strikers. The spring of 1981 was a very turbulent time indeed. I was 21 years old and living away for the first time, attending law school at George Washington University. On May 5, Bobby Sands died on hunger strike after 66 days. He was 27 years old. On May 12, just 1 week later, Francis Hughes became the second hunger striker to perish. He was only 25 years old. I remember being puzzled, if not intrigued, by the actions of these young Irish men on hunger strike. They were only a few years older than myself at that time. And I asked myself whether I held any beliefs so dear that I would be willing to starve myself to death to stand for that belief. That is a question I'm still asking 39 years later. There are many lessons to be learned from the hunger strikers, but I think at the top of my list would be the opportunity to understand what true comradeship really means. In his poetry, Bobby Sands likened his comrades to the fairest flowers of their kind. Here is a verse from Bobby's poem, Comrades in the Dark. They bloomed by country lane and town in freedom's fragrant scent, giving heart to a weary folk when dark days came and went. And grew they strong and beautiful, midst fortune cold and stark, the fairest flowers of their kind, these roses of the dark. And over the years, I think we've all had an opportunity, more than one opportunity, to see real change in action. And it almost never occurs due to one individual. Usually it takes a total commitment from a group of people who not only share the same goals and beliefs, but who love and support one another. And when comrades like that come together, there really is no limit to what can be accomplished. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons we can learn from these 10 young men who died on hunger strike in 1981. All the best.
This is a poem written by the late great Bobby Sands that I put music to, and I'll dedicate this to the bravest of the brave. We don't forget. There's an inner thing in everyone. Do you know this thing, my friend? It has withstood blows a million years and will do so to the end. It was born when time did not exist, and it grew up out of light, and it cut down evil strangling binds like a slash
Curran foilte rove hun commórin na stalcarí ácris fihe. Cabí et in the woldship in Yerin na Harlar fod an down tamid in seála ceile cefniú ar luachre. Burgess fihe for bues stalc ácris idir 9 agus 9 ortmohín. Deithir acu sin in linn hain sa ceisiada. Ní bhreisi siad mé mar tan fun sír se agam a dúirt Bobby Sands, agus níor bhreisi é na chomradaí. Agus mar harúir sin, agus mar harúir strahailt Bobby, agus na fé agus na mrés na prísan tamid lig níos leidre na Rio. Whether you're watching here in Ireland or overseas, on every continent, you're welcome to our national commemoration for Ireland's heroic hunger strikers. This year, as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, we are remembering the hunger strikers in a different way in order to keep people safe. Instead of gathering in our thousands in one place, we gather here online, no doubt in even greater numbers, to remember and to reflect on the hunger strikers and on their legacy. But we continue to draw the same inspiration as ever from their heroism, their dedication and their commitment. This year, our commemoration was due to be held in Cork City as we mark the centenary of the deaths of 3 of the hunger strikers, Terence McSweeney, Sinn Féin TD, agus Ard Mhéara ar Corky, and his comrades Michael Fitzgerald and Joseph Murphy. We remember them in a special way this year. They remind us that the 22 hunger strikers came from all 4 provinces of Ireland and gave their lives in different phases of the struggle for Irish freedom. The 12 young men who died in this, the final phase of the struggle, are within living memory for many. Michael Gaughan in 1974, Frank Stagg in 1976, and in 1981, Bobby Sands, Francis Hughes, Ray McCreesh, Patsy O'Hara, Joe McDonald, Martin Hurson, Kevin Lynch, Kieran Doherty, Thomas McElwee and Michael Devine. I want to express our ongoing solidarity to their families. To those families, I want to say that we will never forget your commitment, dedication and sacrifice. Republicans everywhere mourn the death of the hunger strikers, but for you, their families, that loss was deeply personal and life-changing. Your dignity then and since is an example. It's an inspiration to us all. The deaths of 10 young men in Laoghaire in 1981 shaped our history, and we remember them with pride. For many, the events of that turbulent summer of 1981 are vivid and fresh in their memories. And for the families of the hunger strikers, the passing years has not diminished the grief at their loss, nor the pride in their actions. We think too of the grief of all the families who lost loved ones in that tragic year of conflict. The epic prison struggle in which 10 men died was described by the late Martin McGuinness as our 1916. Such was its impact on that generation of Irish Republicans and on countless Irish people and friends of Ireland right throughout the world then and since. It opened up new fronts in the Republican struggle, new ways of thinking, new forms of resistance. After the hunger strike, the prisoners adopted new tactics. The British government prison regime had failed to break them. The prisoners now proceeded to break that regime from within, and so they did. In 1983, 38 of them broke out of the H-blocks. The late Bobby Story often recounted that remarkable escape and how collective leadership and careful planning, strategy and tactics made it successful. The same lessons were applied to the development of Republican politics. From that Republican resilience and openness to new thinking ultimately developed the Republican peace strategy and the peace process that helped to transform Ireland. The British government that tried to break the prisoners also refused to recognise the electoral mandate of Bobby Sands in Fermanagh, South Tyrone in 1981. In the same way, 100 years ago this month, the British government refused to recognise the electoral mandate of Terence McSweeney, Donnchadh. They arrested him in Cork City Hall and sent him to prison in England, where he was to die on hunger strike. Throughout the peace process and the negotiations for the Good Friday Agreement, and since then, we in Sinn Féin have had to stand up for the rights of our electorate and the integrity of that mandate. But not only have we persisted, we have won ever greater electoral support. Today, Donnchadh, Sinn Féin is now the largest political party on this island. In the north, where Michelle O'Neill is joint head of government, Sinn Féin ministers are at the very heart of the executive, working day in and day out to create a better society for all. Our ministers are making sure the voices of the people are heard around the executive table. The results of the historic Dáil election earlier this year saw Sinn Féin win more votes than any other party in this state. We are now leading the opposition and have forced one of the most significant political realignments in Irish politics in a century. In opposition, Sinn Féin will hold the Irish government to account and work to deliver the real and genuine change that people voted for, and that we will continue to serve the interests of workers and families. It is clear that across Ireland, north and south, east and west, people are looking to a new future and a new and united Ireland. Now, more than ever, with the British government recklessly pursuing a disastrous Brexit policy without any thought of the impact on the north, and with the new right-wing alliance of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and the Greens in the south, people are looking for a better way. They share our vision of an Ireland where everyone is welcome and is a home, where people are treated with respect and dignity, in a greener Ireland with a fairer economy where their children can have a future. The demand of the people of Ireland for change, just like the demands of the hunger strikers in 1981, will not go unheard. We have entered a decade of opportunity where a new Ireland, a united Ireland, is within our grasp. Change is happening across the island in each of the 32 counties. What were once certainties in the past are now gone. In the north, the unionist majority is no more. What once seemed immovable and monolithic has disappeared in successive elections. The two parties that dominated the Dáil for decades now realise that their domination is over and that the people want change. And that force for change is unstoppable. But the new Ireland we seek, and that the men and women of 1981 sought, will not come about on its own. We must prepare for it, work for it, and make it happen. The Good Friday Agreement, voted for by the people, contains provision for a referendum on Irish unity. Securing that referendum should now be the shared goal of everyone who supports the reunification of this island and its people. The discussions on Irish unity is already well underway across the island. Republicans, nationalists and others who support unity are talking about Irish unity and what it would look like and how to secure it. Even those currently opposed to reunification are talking about it and considering what their place in a united Ireland would be. So it simply doesn't make any sense for those who claim that the time is not right. I have a message for them here today. The time is right, and the time is now. The conversation has begun. There is a role for everyone in that conversation, and I'm calling on as many people as possible to get involved in that discussion. In particular, the Irish government has a key role to play. As co-guarantor of the Good Friday Agreement, the Irish government has a responsibility to ensure its full implementation. It also, in common with all Irish governments, has a constitutional responsibility to prepare for Irish unity. We need to see this Irish government actively planning for unity. Warm words won't secure or win a referendum. The Irish Government needs to establish a joint Oireachtas committee on unity, bring forward a white paper, and convene a citizens' assembly inclusive of the entire island to discuss and plan for reunification. It will not be easy, and it is not inevitable, but it is achievable. But just as the Republican prisoners in all phases of struggle were determined, just as they were committed, and just as they were prepared to show leadership, so too will we. This is the time to step up the campaign for Irish unity. On our journey, we will always remember the hunger strikers. Terence McSweeney said, "Not all the armies of all the empires of earth can crush the spirit of one true man, and that one man will prevail." Bobby Sands said, "They have nothing in their entire imperial arsenal to break the spirit of one single Republican prisoner of war. They cannot or never break our spirit." They are our inspiration. We now have the peaceful and democratic way forward to a new republic that will embrace all the people who share this island. So let us move forward together on that path to unity and equality. Lin Lechele.
Sheena fina foil a ta fuialegegun Bwendar su har chindarani queen fui fudge besi shan chira shin share falsta ni I car fuin chira na fuin trial Anach daheim sa bar the wheel leg on gil chum wash no seal leg on ni screch fwy lawach na belier Sholif cani o ran